It looks like OBSBOT just became my B cam.
Engineer reacts.
So about a year ago, the folks at OBSBOT approached me about reviewing one of their webcams. And after going back and forth with them, they were like, well, it looks like you really don't do webcams on your channel. We'll contact you when we have something else. Well, the time is now. OBSBOT reached out to me with respect to the OBSBOT Tail Air. They said, Barry, we noticed that you do a lot of smartphone concert footage and we would like you to take the OBSBOT to a concert and film. And that's what I did. So let me just kind of first talk about what this is. This is the OBSBOT set up right in front of me. As you can see here, it's out of focus. So the way I run my studio is I run it all off of Lumix S5 cameras, and Panasonic was notorious for not having good autofocus. So I've never really used autofocus with these cameras. So the one cool thing is they have lens focus resume. So the biggest challenge for me is just to, when I'm sitting stationary doing a talking head, I just have to sit in the right spot. And my B cam was, until now, another S5. I have to interrupt the video. This is me straight out of the box with just a couple of minor tweaks, talking directly to the tail air in an untreated room without the assist of my high performance microphone. So this is being recorded directly on the tail air, and the tail air is AI capable. So although it's facing me directly, it can absolutely move and capture and allow me to get different vantage points. So just think of a B camera that you don't have to ever worry about you being in the right spot, because it's going to track you if you set the tracking. And it also does object tracking as well. But one thing I want to just point out right now, so this is full frame. I didn't want to sugarcoat anything. I've got a lot of background bokeh, so there's also separation here. So these are not really meant to replace a full frame camera with its aperture wide open. It's really meant to compete with something like this, where I've got the aperture at 8, so everything is in focus in a certain plane. So not talking head where you're trying to blur out the background. And also I wanted to kind of just show this too. The primary difference that you're going to see here, other than the perceived better quality that you see on my full frame because of the depth of field and all that, and also dynamic range of it, you'll see a difference in my shape of my head. And that's just because the OBSBOT Tail Air has a equivalent focal length of 23 millimeters, whereas my Lumix camera has a 50 millimeter focal length. And that's going to change the way for me to, I'd have to move back to get my head to kind of look similar to something that's closer in front of me that's at a quite different focal length. So what I did was I started experimenting with the camera. I went out, grabbed some footage of my new puppy. I grabbed some footage of my son walking around just to kind of test the camera. So I went to my campus and I shot, and I was very impressed. If you look at the footage compared to what you see here in my talking head, you'll probably think, okay, there's some over sharpening. You actually have control in the app. So I'll link to a video by Easy Computer Solutions. He actually covered the app that runs on the Mac or the PC. Under the image tab, you have your ISO adjustment, so you can set your exposure. You also have your shutter speeds. You have a lot of flexibility when it goes to that, but I always set my shutter to be double my frame rate. So also, if you look under white balance, you have custom, which I always use, but they also have stuff out of the box. So auto, haven't had an issue with auto, especially when I'm outdoors with it. So if you look here, you have a video preview window, and I can see all the adjustments real time, just like I can on the phone app. And that's what I typically use. So I use the phone app to make all these adjustments because I don't want to lug around an extra PC or MacBook or something else. I just want everything to be completely mobile and hands-free. And in the studio, I actually have a video switcher. Speaking of the app, clicking on the sliders indicator, you can see that you can change your what type of focus that you're in. You can change your ISO value. So you have a sliding scale. I could actually, and you can see now I'm blown out, but I'll just drop it back to 200. I can just set my exposure so I can kind of fine tune what my exposure look like. I could switch between standard video and HDR video. So I'll just switch back to standard video. So really your choice. I typically have done a lot of testing in standard because it's been pretty decent for me, but there are situations where I'll use the HDR. So right now I have no SD card because I'm using it to film on my video switcher, but clicking here, you would see where all your files are. So anything that you record will be there. So this is probably one of the coolest things here. If you can see, there's a wide, and it's just because I'm so close. This will give you multiple angles that you can select from. Really cool. Right now, I'm just connected over Wi-Fi. So you're seeing this preview over my Wi-Fi network. I use it out in the field all the time, just over cellular. But right here under settings, I have NDI activated. And what NDI stands for is Network Device Interface. It's a protocol developed by the company NewTek, and it opens up a ton of possibilities. So if you think of a typical studio where you have HDMI cables or what have you to control a camera, think of Ethernet, which you can have extenders that go thousands of feet. You literally have unlimited placement options and also the ability to remote into a camera, share that feed over a local area network, so up to 1080p in some cases, up to 4K, depending on what you're doing. And what it does is it requires an NDI license. So if you have a video switcher, it would need a license, and your camera would need the license. So the cool thing is there are tools that are developed for Mac and PC, and this is called NDI tools. And you can actually set up, and what I'm showing here is a monitor. So if you look at my screen, I actually have my video switcher on the monitor on the left, and then you actually can see a display of what's shooting. It's almost like an inception here, but I'm actually in the NDI monitor, and I also have where I can select the Tail Air or my Mac Mini, which is basically a replication of the same feed. So again, anywhere on your local area network, you'll be able to actually access this. And one of the things too that you can do is if your device supports it, it might pull up where it actually has the commands built in, or it will pull you directly to your web page. So I'm just going to move these side by side, these windows, so you can still see what I'm doing here. But look, I've got the camera off screen, but it's being controlled by the web page here, and I can do all the pan, tilt, and zoom capability. And the OBSBOT is really good at about up to 2x zoom. So here's a trade-off, right? OBSBOT is running a Black Friday special. This product normally costs $4.99. It's at $4.24. Now, I have been around a lot of PTZ cameras and conference rooms, and those are $1,500 to $2,000 or more. Now, they will give you an optical zoom. So I always tell creators this: if you are a creator that's in your own lab, you don't really need an optical zoom, because if you can do 1 or 2 times zoom or set the placement, these are fine. And now we're actually at the concert footage. So I think this footage turned out absolutely phenomenal. Now I will say, and this is not to make OBSBOT look better, there's too much lighting on the actual act. Everything was blown. I was like, this is gonna be terrible. I'm like, man, I got tickets to this concert. Great concert, young up and coming jazz musician, but why is this so blown out? Like, I can understand you want to make the club dark, but I need to be able to see the act. If it's too bright, it's tough for me, let alone a camera. So I had to kind of work around that. But I thought all the footage was simply great. And again, I could have sat there and the settings or whatever, but I kind of wanted to show what everybody would see coming out of this just from the base. Basically what's going to happen from now on. The OBSBOT will be kind of floating in the studio, but it will go with me to film things. Even if I go to like a Starbucks and I have a meeting, I'm going to use this. And then if I have something where I want to do for YouTube, I'm going to use this instead of using my dedicated camera when this does a pretty good job. YouTube should be recommending a video to you now. So click here or here. And if you have any questions, please send it down below. OBSBOT did send me a link. Now, I'm going to put 2 links. You can use my link or you can use their link. You don't have to give me commission. Not asking for that. This is just something that I'm pretty excited about because it's a pretty good product. And with that, we're out.